would be a good question.
Unless you are going to ask it anonymous, but perfect. So indeed, this shir is Ilon Nishmat Chaya Sor Bas Aaron Yehuda. I gave already many times. I remember I think I put it on my YouTube channel, the shir that I gave from the last time. With Hashem, we should be a Meilit Yosh, and they should see, all the children should see also the Nechome in very, very quickly in the Bias Goel Tzedek B'Meir B'Yameinu Made. I went to this Rabbi Shimon Russell event that he came a few months ago, and I decided that the subject was extremely interesting, and I decided to make a little bit of analysis of his opinions. I want to make sure that I agree with some of you that might think that he has some very radical opinions and extremely radical opinions. He also states and he claims some very shocking facts that I don't know if we will even discuss it here because it already goes very deep into the issues. But he has been considered as one that has a lot of experience and also quite successful in a lot of his project that he was doing so far. And since he has been invited by many communities through the Rabbonim, I thought that we can maybe go a little bit deeper into what he says. And it's a very good point that somebody said, I am not a therapist. I don't have any degree in psychology or whatever. What I did is I simply looked at about 15 hours of videos of what he has been given and trying to summarize them and trying to figure out exactly what his opinions are. It's clear that he has a very strong critique on the current Haredi system. And he does not hide it under the carpets. He says it openly during his shiurim, maybe in an indirect way, sometimes in a direct way, depends where he is. And basically, the opinions that he has are so radical that sometimes I got a feeling is in order to push for a change, you sometimes need a crisis. There is an expression, no crisis, no change. And so therefore, he sometimes maybe, I'm not saying exaggerating, but putting forward facts that are so shocking that it makes people think and hopefully change. The system that we have today, according to him, is actually so bad that it's clear that for him this will create more traumatic cases. There will be more OTD. I don't know if there are here people that have OTD in their homes or know people. I don't really know people around me directly that have children that went off the derech. But he says that the situation is so dramatic that this issue, this phenomena will only increase. And so we as parents, we as grandparents, we still have a daughter in home, but we already passed the true Chinuch moment, although we always remain being mechanechim our children. But if the parents, we can do something, but of course also the community leaders, they probably also need to change the system. And this is probably something that will take much longer. And hence, this shir is more focused on what chinuch should be from a parent's perspective in order to avoid these type of situations. Now, when a person has had a heart attack, and he survives a heart attack, he goes to the doctor, besides the medication that he has to take, but the doctor always will tell him, you need to change your lifestyle. You need to eat less red meat, less saturated fat, less sugar, be more careful on your weight, live a life with less stress, etc. So basically, you have to basically live a healthy life. Now, unfortunately, this is not only for people that have had already a heart attack, but we always ask ourselves the question, shouldn't we all be living healthy and avoid, in order to live more preventive, or even not even preventive, but just living a more healthy life? Whatever the doctor tells to him is nothing to do with a heart attack. It's simply meaning that a person should be living a healthy life. So when Rabbi Shimon Russell, you all heard about him, right? No, first time that you hear about him now? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm always assuming that everybody was at his, he came to speak here, and he spoke about the Chinuch, and he is a specialist in cases from parents that have children that are completely off the derech. And when I speak of the derech, it's not boys that don't want to learn and they don't always put on tefillin and this type of cases, but we're talking about proper of the derech, where the boys or girls, they put on tattoos and they are clearly Michal Shabbos, they go to eat in McDonald's, they end up having drugs, and eventually they end up in with the Chavre Kedisha. So that's really the terrible cases, and this is apparently something which is increasing.
What do you mean they end up?
They end up with an overdose or suicide. Yeah.
Rabbi Wallerstein was always busy with this type of thing.
But he has already developed a lot. He had 8 children. I think 5 of his 8 children at some point were Mechal Shabbos. So he went through himself. He talks about his own experience, and then he has dealt with tens of thousands of children and of teenagers. So he has a tremendous lot of experience. And what he actually discovered, and he actually says at some point, and this is the basics of everything that he says, is you have what we can call the traditional education, the traditional chinuch, but at some point, when the situation gets completely out of hand, we have to go over from the normative chinuch to what he calls a crisis chinuch. And this crisis chinuch is really very radical. And some people will be shocked when I spoke. I gave this year by men also. We had a lot of discussions about that. But since he believes that when a boy or girl is already at that level, we are pikuach nefesh. You all know what pikuach nefesh means, that the sakonas nefoshes, it's a sakona. And parents have to completely change their perspective. It's not anymore trying to keep the boy or the girl being from, or at least Yiddish, and not marrying off outside of our community, but it is really keeping him alive. And therefore, since it is about keeping him alive, this extreme is that if the child wants to go to McDonald's, you have a chiyuv. He holds to bring the child to McDonald's, pay him. He should buy this burger, bring him home, and he should eat it in your kitchen. And he even holds eventually halachically that, because normally you're not allowed to feed somebody else with the treif meat, but in this case you would be even allowed to feed him. So it's really something which we are not used to. We are used to especially Chabad and the Kiruv organizations. No, you have to show how nice it is to keep Shabbos and Kashrus, etc. Here we come to a stage where you have to do everything to make sure that the child reconnects with you, as we will see, reattachment to the parents, and feels and basically make sure that he does not end up in the street with drugs. He speaks about if the child wants to buy some recreational drugs, to go with him. Don't let him go by himself, to pay for him and take him with a car and bring him back home. If he brings down girlfriends in his bedroom, everything has to be, you have to really, the chinuch is changed completely. It's called really the crisis chinuch. I've never heard of it before. So for me, it was rather shocking. I don't think that he spoke about it when he was here in Antwerp. He did not.
I would have
sorry?
heard about this.
No, no,
I would have heard
no.
about this.
So it is really a very radical approach. Now, like I said, the mechanism behind this crisis chinuch is true, and it's only valid for, of course, for cases that are already medically in a situation which is pikuach nefesh, and indeed there is a danger for their lives. But the principle of everything that he says, like when the doctor says to live healthy life, everything that he's going to explain for these extreme cases is also actually valid for normal cases, for us. And that's why I think it's very interesting to listen to what he says and to take back, everybody will take back as much as he wants or can or agrees to. But the principle is rather, I think, interesting, because it explains the mechanism of how things are working, and therefore it can help in creating more healthy children and eventually avoiding, if possible, the situations that we just described before. Is it okay? Yeah. Yeah. So we're taking a crisis idea, a very radical, extreme idea, and then we're trying to translate that into something that we on our daily basis can maybe also use. Okay, like the doctor that explains that doing exercises, and this could be also true for, you don't need to have a heart attack in order to live that, and you know that it's going to do you good. So I've got a lot of points here, which are, a lot of them, I've got even more, which are very shocking, but I will try this. Normally, I think it's like 40 minutes. I know that maybe sometimes you'll have questions. Every questions will be very interesting and will create a debate, which I love, and I think that's the whole purpose. But then the points, I will not be able to finish what I want to say. So I don't know. If you have a question, if something is not clear, please ask. But if there is a debate, is either write it down, and then we can have after the shiur kind of at the end a little debate so that the people can go home on time. Okay? Is this okay? Good. Betzem, he says there are two kinds of chinuch in general. Nothing to do with crisis chinuch, but there is two kinds of chinuch. Yes, the mitzvah that every parent have to teach our children in the Torah and the mitzvahs, to make sure that our children have yiras Hashem, ahavas Hashem, that they follow the Torah, that they learn Torah, that they are b'tznius if it's for girls, and they follow all the haluchas that the Shulchan Aruch. And this is what he calls the v'shinamtem levonecho, that you have to teach your children, shalo vicho v'yad getro. There are a lot of psukim that are related to the normal chinuch, which when you ask a Rov what means chinuch, he's going to tell you is to teach Torah, to teach yiras Hashem in the house, etc., to make them proper good Jews. But then he says there is a second kind of chinuch. And there I follow him completely. He takes it from a different angle. I took it from another angle, but he says there is another one, which is Lasheves Yotzro. There's a posuk that the person has to put on the world healthy children. That's how he translated. Basically, it's to make sure that the world is populated, but populated not with unhealthy people, but with healthy people, people that are, or this can be Shuva Sheloilom, that are actually building and are productive people that are kind of helping the world to become a better world, and etc. I already spoke many times about the Tikkun Olam, but it's really to put down people that are mentioned that are stable, that know how to produce and know how to help the world, whether it is on the creation, or whether it is on humanity, whether it is on the nation, the community, his family, to on all the different dimensions, to be productive persons which are healthy. These healthy individuals is not only important to be physical, but also to be mentally healthy. I always used to say, the Rabbi Tam says, derech eretz toiv, toirim derech eretz. So Rabbi Tam says that derech eretz is iker, and the Torah is only tofel. So in other words, what we sometimes we think that and I'm one of them, is what we prefer is to have a fromme child. We don't want Chas v'Sholem to have a child that is Machal Shabbos, marries a shiksa or whatever. We want to have a Jewish children, and even if it's at the cost of health, he believes that the most important element is to have healthy children, and he believes, and the Iker is der Cheretz Kodmo LaTorah. First is to put down on the world good and healthy, productive children, and the Torah is on top of that, of course, makes it even more interesting. But there is a bit of a debate. Even there is a very nice panel. He's with his wife during a panel, and he goes a little bit deeper into that. But in any case, it's a very interesting point of view. Like I said, to be healthy does not only mean to be physically healthy, but also to be mental healthy. And basically, the way that I understand it is to love oneself. So to have self-love is very important in a good, and we will develop why. But because if you love yourself, then whenever you fail, whenever you have a hiccup, whenever there's a setback in your life, you manage to bounce back. So if a person doesn't love himself, the moment that he fails, he can spiral down into depression, into sadness, and despair. But a person that has a self-love, he or she, of course, whenever there is a setback or there is a failure, he will bounce back. And that's the idea of healthy children, is putting on the world healthy people, means that people that have a basics of self-love, that love themselves. And the question is, how do you create self-loving people? It is, and that's why he goes to a very radical opinion. He calls it unconditional love, from 0 to 2. So in other words, when you have a child that is just born till about 2 years old, he believes that self-love is programmed in the brains, apparently, that you have a period of 2 years where you can burn the self-love into the neurons of the brains of the child, and that you have to give him unconditional love. Now, we think unconditional love, of course, we all love our children unconditionally. But the truth is that it's not true according to him. I don't. I will say about myself, my wife gives unconditional love, no issues, but I myself do not. Basically, the idea is that when a child between 0 and 2 years old is doing something which is bad for you, and you are shouting at the child, you're showing him an angry face, you're lifting up your finger and you tell him, you're showing him that he should be careful and not do it. From that moment on, this child is not anymore unconditionally loved. Because what it means, in other words, that the child feels you only love me when I'm doing good, but if I'm doing something which you consider naughty, he doesn't even understand why it is naughty to go with a pen and make artistic pictures on the wall. For him, it's something beautiful and it's something funny, and you are shouting at him. That means that the child understands that his parents or his father or mother, whatever, only loves him when he behaves in a particular way. But if he doesn't behave in that particular way, then the parents don't love him. And that's called conditional love. So basically from 0 to 2, he believes that is the critical moment where we have to give our child the unconditional love, because then he will have this self-love. And from that moment on, of course, when you are 2 years old, you have to start what he calls limit setting. You have to put limits, that there are certain rules in the house, certain rules. You have to have a shower or a bath every day, and you have to go to bed before, not after 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I don't know. So these are limit setting. But if you gave unconditional love, you never shouted at your child and always smiled and giggled and made pictures, he calls it making pictures, whenever the child does something terrible, the child will understand that those rules are not punitive rules. They are not restrictive rules because we don't like them, because we're afraid of them, or we want to, whatever it is. But they know that it is part of the love that the parents are giving, and they don't feel it at all as something which is punitive measures. But it's simply a limit setting that they understand at some point. And he says that if you manage to do that, then when the child becomes teenagers, then your relationship changes, and then you become more of a guidance. You give to your child guidance, and the child comes to you for guidance. So the unconditional love, according to him, is even when you fail, even when you make a mistake and you do horrible things, we still love you. The fact that we were not raised like that, I was not raised like that, my parents were not raised like that. When we did something wrong, our parents showed us an angry face. That is not unconditional love, according to him. That means that you only love me for what I do and not for who I am. The continuous focus on nachas, this he doesn't say, but this I say, the fact that we focus a lot on nachas also accentuates the fact that he gives me so much nachas, he learns well, he davens well, so we continuously focus on what he does and not for what he is. And that's kind of seen by him as a problem, because it does not give the child self-love. Because for the moment, he knows that he has to play by the rules if he wants to receive a treat and a hug and a kiss. If he does not play by the rules, he will not receive a hug and a kiss and supper, whatever it is. And so he learns how that he is not for himself good, and therefore when there is a failure, when he is a setback, when there's a hiccup in his life, he feels like a failure, and he does not have enough self-love in order to pick himself up again. And it can spiral down. So this is one advantage of unconditional love. There's a second advantage of unconditional love, which is something for me I found it beautiful, and I fully agree with him, is when you give your child unconditional love, and now we start to the serious stuff, whenever something happens to a child, something terrible that happens to a child in the garage, in school, whatever it is, or the child himself discovers things about himself, he discovers his own sexuality. I'm going to use the word. I'm sorry, there is no shocking. Will I shock if I use the word? I'm sorry, yeah, it's okay.
We're all grown up here.
Yeah. Sorry?
Even when you know the baby ever born from holes and from...
Yeah. You went past that already. So when he discovers his own sexuality in a very interesting way and things like that, when he's been touched or she's been touched by somebody and she feels horrible about that, if the child feels unconditional love, then his theory would be, then the child has no problem in going to her parents or his parents and tell him, this is what happened to me. Unfortunately, a lot of times the child is embarrassed because he feels that something bad has happened, that maybe he is at the cause, and his parents will shout at him, will not understand him, will not believe him, etc., and therefore he will not go over to the parents. And that's when apparently the problem can start. Of course, going to the parents does not resolve the problem, but it's a big part of the solution to not let it get to the situation where we discussed before. Because the moment that the parents hear about that, I'm assuming that the parents will do something constructively with the child. This also not always. Unfortunately, in some parts of the community, it will be shushed away, don't tell nobody, shidduchim, whatever it is. But in any case, that's a separate problem. But in generally, when a child can speak it out and can tell his parents before it becomes a problem, that's already a big start of the solution. And that is something which, of course, again, the unconditional love will give to this child. So now, is it so far so So is it clear?
Yeah.
So it has two advantages. It gives self-love. So even when he has a setback, financial, shidduchim, whatever it is, he will be able to get himself back up. And the second part is if there is really a problem, and instead of keeping it for himself, he will have he will not have this barrier of going over to tell his parents. Then he speaks about the element of a trauma. And this is something that for him, so if a child goes through a trauma and he does not have the opportunity to speak to his parents and he keeps it to himself, this trauma will become a traumatic event by him. It will become a traumatic experience. And what will happen eventually is that this child has a big chance of what he calls to disconnect. And it's a very interesting thing, or how he explains a trauma to be able to happen. Now, what I have to say, a trauma does not have to be that a man in the garage touched the girl, or that the Rabbi pushed himself a little bit too much on the child, or he asked him, whatever it is, whatever apparently happens. I have to say again, and I mean it, I have not experienced any of this, and but I do believe, and I've heard a lot of stories like that. Baruch Hashem, we were spared these type of things. At least I think, because they say also that sometimes when things happen, that sometimes your memory, you have a tendency to delete part of your memory, but at least I don't have any experience or memory about it, but these are things that do happen. And apparently, and that's where I'm being in a lot of WhatsApp discussions with this person, but he claims that 1 on 5 children today are sexually abused. Sorry?
In the world.
No, in the Jewish community. So if you have a class of 30, now, again, I guess that what he means is it does not have to be enforced by somebody else, but it can also be by suddenly the person discovers part of his own sexuality, that then it feels that the Rebbe or the Morah says this is tumor, this is also, and he lives in a world where he cannot assimilate these two contradicting elements, and this can also probably become what he calls a traumatic event. He says trauma does not have to be through a single event that happened. It can also be a myriad of small little events, which can be of a sexual dimension, but it can also be of a learning disability dimension, meaning sometimes children have a learning disability, and they've been pushed and pushed and pushed every single day to go to school and to perform and to have good points and to become a Talmid Chochem, or to, whatever it is, to have good points on the exams, and the child simply cannot. And for this, every single day going to school is a small, tiny traumatic event that can become eventually a big trauma for the child that can suddenly decide to disconnect. So it's quite complex. The idea is quite complex, but he does explain that a lot of people, much more than we think, so on 30 children, at least 5 will have some issues that are traumatic. I don't know where he takes this number from, but again, this is one of the numbers that are quite shocking, and a lot of people are quite taken back. Either they don't want to believe it, or if they believe it, but then they are extremely upset that the system lets it happen. But I'm just telling you how he sees that.
Why doesn't he go and speak to the schools?
That's what he does. That's what he does. That's his job, and he tries. He tries, but the schools also have to have what we call an open. Currently, and this is something I already It's something that I've dealt with them in different shiurim. But there are two kinds of brains that we have. We have the rational brains. This is the brains where we can develop concepts and reasoning. And when we find something logic, oh, I understand that. That is from the rational brain that we can think. And then you have the other part of the brain, which is called I always forget the amygdala. Amygdala, sorry. Yeah, the reptilian brain, also called, that's right. Yeah, it's the basic brain. And that brain, actually what it does, besides the drive to food and procreation, etc., but it also has a memory from all the bad experiences that you have. So whenever a child touches something very hot and it was very painful, it will memorize that something that is hot has to be not touched. You don't touch something that is hot, it is memorized in that part of the brain. Now, when something of a traumatic event happens, the same thing will happen. In other words, this traumatic event will be memorized, and the moment that the child is, or the teenager is triggered, meaning that there is something very similar that happens that was at the time when the trauma happened. It can be a smell, it can be a feeling, it can be coming from inside, can come from outside, it can be a voice, can be a word, a sentence, whatever it is. And suddenly the brains, what happens is that this type of brain takes over and he shuts down the reasoning brain, the normal brain, the frontal lobe of the brains. It's completely shut down. So you don't think anymore. In other words, when I always say, when some people are afraid of spiders or of bees or whatever it is, and when they see one, they get into that mode. So there is no, whenever somebody says, yeah, but look how small they are so cute, it doesn't help. It doesn't help because that moment on, sorry, there's no reasoning. At that moment, your brains have switched off. What? Sorry? When the plane is shaking, there is no reasoning. Exactly. That part of the brain is completely, the reasoning brain is completely switched off, is offline, as they say, and it is only the other part of the brain that is working. And that's something which we have to understand. In other words, reasoning does not help. So you can say to a child that is traumatized, yes, but what about your friends, and what about your grandparents, and what about Chinuch, and what about this, or what about that? When a person is traumatized and it's so bad that it's been taken over his life, then reasoning for this on this level does not help at all. And that's why he says that this child is what we call disconnect. So there is a very strong disconnection, whether it is the brains, but also he disconnects with religion and disconnects with his parents, and he can disconnect with everything, but it is a complete disconnection. And basically, from that moment on, the child cannot be reasoned anymore. Basically, kiruv and explaining and making it nice and shefel, come, sit down, let me explain you. No, it will not help because the child is in a mode. And not only that, you will actually, apparently, you can see it in their eyes. They become a bit psychotic because they are in a phase where there is the fight and flight or freeze, whatever it's called, and they cannot reason with you, and they do not want to reason with you, and they can even say that whatever you're trying to do is actually you are mean and you are a horrible person and go away. And they don't understand. They do not understand, and they cannot function anymore. So that's the result of a traumatic event. Like I said, either a very big trauma or it is a lot of different smaller traumas that happens in the child, a child that has learning disabilities. And every time on Friday night, the father asks, "Nu, say et vachteure," and he cannot. For him, this becomes a traumatic event. And he locks himself up in the room and he does not want to anymore. And every Friday night, and from now on, the Friday night for him is a trigger for shutting down. And this child is damaged, as we say. He has a problem and he's suffering, and he has to learn how to cope with that. So once this unfortunate event happened, then of course the child needs to cope. And we're talking about a child which will not take his life, so he has to find other ways to cope. And so he finds all kinds of ways that is adaptive behavior in order to be able to cope with what happened. One of the most important point that he wants to say, Rabbi Shimon Russell, is from that moment on, talking about the Yetzer Hara is simply, how do you call it? It's achzoriut. How do you call it? It's cruelty. To speak to a child and to say this is Yetzer Hara, it's stupid and it's achzorius. It does not help, because we're not talking now about a Yetzer Hara for pleasure. We're talking about a child that needs to survive in a pain that it feels that does not go away. That the triggers are so much, the triggers of be religious, go and learn, become a Talmid Chochem, be tznuah and not be a prutza. It's too much, and that it continuously is in a phase of surviving and coping a terrible, terrible pain. And so there are different ways of how they cope with that pain. He doesn't speak about that, but sometimes maybe a child becomes extremely frum. Suddenly you see a child go to Notorekarte, becomes a best level, I don't know. And you see this happening as well. And but most of the time the child goes, and some interesting thing, he goes to the other extreme. And where I did not understand, and I asked to ChatGPT, sometimes you have to use whatever is available, is indeed why does a child that is sexually molested, abused, whatever, suddenly, especially if it's a girl, for example, goes and she goes dressed like a putza, let's call it that way. She goes with a bit too short skirts and tattoos and hangs out with friends. I mean, this doesn't make sense, because you've been molested and you've been so. I've asked, and this is called an adaptive behavior. It's a very normal behavior, and you can look it up yourself, but there's a few different explanations. For me, it's kind of looking for closure. In other words, to that and control. This man raped me or touched me or whatever it is, and he controlled, and now I'm going to control my sexuality. I was an object, and now I want to be the subject. You understand what I'm saying? Until then, when it happened, I was simply the object, and I did not have the power to do anything. And now I want to feel that I have the power again. And so you become the subject and not the object of. There is a lot of different explanations, which are very nice. I'm not going to go through all of them, but unfortunately, intellectually very nice. But of course, for those who experience it, is a terrible experience. But he says it is a purely what we call a PTSD effect of trying to adapt and being able to survive. And sometimes they indeed go to pleasure. So they go to drugs, to porn, to whatever it is that can try to give them momentarily a bit of pleasure and an escape from the pain that they are feeling. That moment is the child is completely disconnected. Okay, so that's when the child is disconnected. And from that moment on, the normative chinuch, the chinuch that we all give our children, has to stop. And we have to give to this child the pure crisis chinuch, meaning from now on, the Torah and the mitzvahs is not even in the scope of your thoughts. The only thought that you must have is, how can I reconnect with my child? In other words, the point, what he wants to say, and he had this very, very powerful words, which he says Hashem gave him at some point. He went with his daughter, and then into Tzvas, and then he came back from Tzvas, and he thought it was wonderful. She was davening, and she was so nice. And then on the way back from Tzras, when he went into the car, she went into the car. Apparently, she went with swimming trunks, basically. I don't know, that's how he describes. I guess she was mamish with very short skirts. So basically, he thought that he managed to do kiruv, but actually she defied him even more. And the word which he uses in such a case is, how much you will try to defy me, defiance, my love for you will always be bigger. So in other words, you can try to defy me how much you want, but my love back to you will always be bigger than the defiance that you are showing to me. And this is the whole principle of his method, is to show the child the love, complete love, unconditional, but in so much that you do not even react to the defiance of the child. I don't know if it's possible. Baruch Hashem, I'm not in that situation. I was never in that situation, but this is basically what a parent has to do, to love the child more than the defiance that the person has been doing. So far, so good? Too shocked, or is it okay? Now, let's come back to us, okay? Now that we were a little bit in some extreme cases, let's come back to us. He believes that, and this is how I understand, that even if we did not give our children between 0 to 2 unconditional love, and there's a big chance that we didn't, because we were never told, and our parents were raised in a different ways, and the derech of Chinuch was not like that in the whole world, not only in the Jewish community generally. Then he says that there is still another way that we can basically try to attach yourself to the children. And in other words, the main idea is that parents and grandparents, what they have to show to the child is a healthy attachment. And he calls it the healthy attachment framework. It's an existing framework, which he just took from somebody else. There's a book apparently about that. And it's the 4 S's. It's the 3 S's, which develops in the 4th S, is a safe, seen, suited, and secure. Those are soothed.
Just suit.
Yeah. How do you say soothed? With a D? Soothed. Yeah. Okay. And when he believes that,
Where can you go with it?
yeah, so there's the 4 actually, but the 4th is the secure, is actually the result probably. Yeah. In his shir it was not clear, but I checked it in the sources. The safe, to create a safe environment where whenever they fail, whenever they have an issue, that they feel that they can come to us and we're not going to be angry, we're not going to be shocked, but we will be smiling and we will be supportive. They feel safe at home. There is the element of seen. Seen is something which I think normally people do, is trying to focus on the individuality of each of the children. Because we tend, especially those who have big families, so you have the kids, because normally you have the kids, and then you raise the kids. But you don't raise Ruchel and Moishel, and you understand what I'm saying? So we tend to focus more on the concept of children, but we sometimes forget that those are also individuals and they need to be seen. So basically to continuously look at them, learn from them, understand who they are, and give them feedback so that they know, I noticed that you were not so happy there, do you want to share? Or I noticed that you were playing very well, So basically the idea is to observe and to identify and to show to the child that the father or the mother has seen this child as an individual, and that he can develop his individuality and not be part of the Porush family or whatever it is, the family. But it's really each of the individual helping to develop themselves. And then you have the soothes. Soothes is actually, it's what we call the imcho ani betzoro. So that when a child feels, makes a mistake, the biggest mistake that he does is, for example, you tell him, don't take the bike and on the ice, because you're gonna make an accident, you will fall. And that's exactly what happened. And you not only that, you broke the bike, and now you need a new bike, and you made a scratch on the car, and then you have to pay insurance, whatever. The answer, Maisa, you come home, the child comes home, and the father I told you so. That's not soothe. That's the opposite of soothe. Soothe means first, come home, are you in pain? Where are you in pain? Give him a hug, make him a hot coffee or hot chocolate, whatever it is. And then eventually when he's calmer, you can talk about it. No, what did you learn from this experience, or whatever you want to do. But this is really the soothe. It's the idea, again, is to create a secure home for your children. It should be nice, pleasant, no stress, no tensions at home, harmony, whatever it is, in order for the child to feel that he is loved on the one hand, but more in this case, that he should be able to communicate with his parents in a case when there are issues, and whenever there is a hiccup in his life or her life, that he feels that he's gotten the attachment, the healthy attachment of his parents. So, what time is it?
9:30.
Which means that can I continue with the critique on the system, on the Haredi system? Should I? Is it okay? Yeah. Seriously, it's okay. He has the idea. First of all, let me finish maybe with the previous case. If a person, that's what he believes, if a person receives either unconditional love, or at least the healthy 4S's attachment, then when there is an issue, when there is kind of a doubt or whatever, there are problems, and especially when it comes to religious problems, he believes that anyway, there is this concept of osmosis. I don't know if somebody still remember from biology, the lesson osmosis. Somebody knows what osmosis is? Sorry?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the children
Transferring through big clothes.
Yeah, and that eventually, no, it also means that the way I understand it, I hope that I understood him right, is that why am I religious? I will tell you why am I religious, because my parents were religious. I promise you, unfortunately, I did not make my analysis between the Islam and Christianity and atheism. I did not make the full analysis of these religions. Then I came to the conclusion that Judaism is the best religion for me. No, I'm religious because my parents are religious, are Jewish, and that's why for me it's good enough for me. And of course, once I am Jewish, I learned a lot and I really liked it. And then I made a lot of comparison, but purely out of intellectual interest, but not. This is what basically, if you are healthy and you raise your children in a healthy way, religion will follow. That's what he wants to say. If you focus too much on religion, you have the danger of creating a trauma. And then the child will chas v'shalom disconnect, and it will have the opposite effect. So basically, and that's where he kind of hints to the people, is be careful and maybe just focus on bringing up healthy children, and automatically they will, 90%, a lot of people here are religious because the parents were religious, they will follow. But the most important part is to be healthy mentally, physically, the rest will follow. And to focus so much on, did you say Kriyat Shema, did you put on tefillin, did you learn the Gemara, did you make Chazorah, all these things. As a parent, as a Rebbe, of course, that's the job, but as a parent, make sure, are you happy, are you okay, are you feeling good with yourself, do you have any issues? This should be your worry, because the rest will follow anyway. This is how I understand from osmosis, that is kind of, it transfers from one generation to the next in a natural way, that you don't have to give it and don't have to push it. It comes by itself. It's also very daring and radical. I don't know if I would have the guts to do it, but he believes at the moment, and he sees it at the moment, that the disconnected child, an OTD, when he manages to reconnect with the parents, eventually, not after 2 years, sometimes it takes 10 years, but those children, they marry and they become Homer, maybe not the fromste and whatever, but they are still Jewish and they go to shul and they keep a Jewish life. They marry and they have children. So basically, it says sometimes it takes when they are 30 or 40 years old, but they eventually come back. And that's his experience that he has been having after 30 years of doing it. Now, where is the problem in the Jewish community? And this is something which we all know basically, but he believes that the Haredi community. Now, I don't know about the Dati Leumi, so I'm not how it is in the more modern community. So I will speak about the Haredi community, which I was personally raised in. We have only 2 bubbles. So we are raising 2 bubbles, which is the one bubble is for the boy specifically is the Limud HaTorah. We raise the Rebbes. You have to become Reb Chaim Kanievskis and my time it was Rav Shachs and Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. We all have to become the biggest Talmidei Chachomim. And on the other hand, probably the girls, it's Hatznia Leches Im Hashem. It's about the tznius. You have to become proper, how do you say, Bas Melechs and don't know what. Sorry? All Kvude Bas Melech Nimo. The whole idea, but also actually the girls today have to learn even maybe some things even more than the boys. So basically on the girls there is a lot of pressure. But these are the 2 only bubbles that the children are raised into. And the moment that there is something that happens that is outside of those 2 bubbles, especially, and he speaks about sexuality, there is no bubble. And so it is outside of the bubble. So, and that creates a problem where the children suddenly start to feel something is wrong with me. I am a goy gomo, I am a dirty person, I have dirty thoughts, I'm doing dirty things, which a Rebbe says it's the biggest sin, according to the Zohar, it's written in Shulchan Aruch, one of the biggest sins that can be for a boy. And I'm a shaygatz, or I'm a prutzah, I'm a shikse, whatever it is, they start to feel terrible because there is no bubble and there's nothing. It actually tells them that, everything that you're going through is normal, or it's stuck not normal, and go and speak to your parents because something happened in the class or in the garage or in the parking, whatever it is that happened. And basically, this, he says, since we have not adapted ourselves, this problem will only increase. And since we do not have a 3rd bubble or a 4th bubble or whatever it is, how he calls it, the problem will not go away by itself and will only increase. So again, it does not have to be of sexual molestation, but it can also be learning disabilities, where going to school is becoming a nightmare because you have been pushed that you have to become a Talmid Chochem, but some children are not interested, don't have the brains, and for them they are raised as being losers. And every single day they have the feeling, somebody tells me now I am a loser because I cannot enjoy the Gemara, I cannot enjoy what I am. It tells a story which for me was a fascinating story. There was a story that a girl was sitting in the class, and the Morah in Eretz Israel, the Morah was telling them that women have to wear over the, what do you call it? The elbow. And so this girl asked the question, I don't understand. This is such a horrible piece. It's so ugly. And she asked to the Morah, I don't understand, why do I have to cover that? I mean, it's It's horrible. It's ugly. It's a shrink like that. It's something which is not nice at all. And the Mora got a shock, and she sent her out to the head teacher. They even called him, and thinking what should they do with her and this and that. And he tried to save the situation, but the director was no. And so they did not want to ask. He said that the Etzem teacher should ask Mechila. And she said that if you want, because you ruined your child. The child asked actually a very good. I mean, I love the question. I don't even have the answer. I mean, basically, I can imagine, but there's how would you give an answer to that? But they ruined the child because the Mora did not want to ask Mechila to the girl for sending her out, because he said that by asking Mechila, you will this girl will suddenly become your talmida, your best talmida. And basically, it didn't happen, and apparently this girl is not on the, I don't know, but apparently not in a good way. Yeah.
And some of the people first of all, we do the sun didn't say Kriya Shema. So people were giving different answers, and then he gave an example that he found was correct, and he said, "Oh, there's a father, and that doesn't say Kriya Shema. The father fasts the whole fast, like the next day or something." Everybody was shouting and saying, "It's like a terrible thing. That's not fast." And these are directors of schools thinking this is a good thing.
Yeah.
In a sense, the children's directors.
Yeah. And yeah. And the child should see that the father fasts and feel that he is harming, that he's doing something terrible, and this creates a trauma. There's yes.
Can I see where there are two people here? There are two people here who represent the education field. 3 people. Yeah, so please can I just say a word for the teachers? Just like we all deal with every one of us has hopefully has had well-meaning parents who somehow messed us up in one way or another. They did the best they could with the tools they had. Teachers, most of the teachers, I'm not talking about abuse. Most of the teachers give their heart and their soul for the children. So they do it with the tools they have. I'm sure that some people.
No, I think it's not the time. I think it's with the times. Yes.
This is the No, this was a terrible example. I think this was a terrible example. Most of I just wanted to say, please, okay, for teachers, also teacher. Please appreciate your children's teacher. It's not an easy job. They do. Yes, they have training.
You take it as enough.
Yes.
If you know
Sorry?
Okay, excuse us. This is what these are.
Yeah. Could be. I hope so. Yeah. Yeah.
Takes his energy and his experiences out of the American.
I hope so.
youth.
I hope so. I hope that the numbers are not in Antwerp. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
That everything applies for you.
Okay.
Nothing against this. I think his numbers and his way of dealing with it.
on American, the literature system, and maybe not applicable on the European. Maybe we are a little bit more. It's possible. I really hope so.
I think stay too long. I like nothing about old teachers.
No,
Nothing.
no, nothing. I like experience. I like.
I'm not involved.
No, I don't think that.
They need training. 2025.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, it's not only the teachers. I'm just giving an example of teachers, but I spoke more about parents. So, so we have to look on ourselves more. But teachers are also parents. Yeah. But yeah, I understand. I'm really. I believe that you must be right, because when I heard these stories, I don't know about this. I don't know. I know of OTD down to there, but it's not. Yeah. But I never. Yes. 5, and
all of them
they came
as a result of trauma.
Oh, so that's why the problem is that he cannot speak for them, because he cannot disclose their personal issues. So he could not explain why each of the children. But eventually, I guess that somehow, because he says that 99% of the people of the derech, and we're talking about proper of the derech, is 99% is traumatically related, from which I think 80% are sexual, are the sexual
Weather. Problem has become bigger also.
Yeah.
Is the Chinuch or it is the sick?
Oh, so he claims the following. He claims, now it's a bit complicated, but he claims that after the war, his theory is after the war, we had to rebuild the community, the Jewish community. And so the basis was not on the individual, but it was on the community. And so we forgot about the individuals. And that has now, after 5 generations, now is already, Baruch Hashem, the yeshivas, they can't even keep up with the demands, the SAMs, they have to fight to get in. So it's not anymore a problem of Moisdes, and so now is the time, he believes, to try to correct, because the harm has been done in a few generations of people that did not receive individual chinuch and the healthy love, self-love, and the derech eretz, and the whatever it is. I'm not going to go into my personal opinion about this as well. But eventually, the harm is done, and we need now to change drastically the system in order to. The system has to change, and the parents. So the only thing that you can do as a parent is to do the 4 S's in order for the child, when things go sour, which it will eventually go sour, that to what? Sorry?
It's number 5.
It's sour, yeah. So when the 5th, the sour comes in, then he feels enough, how do you call it, resilience to overcome. That's where he says, I guess, because he spoke, is unbelievable. I don't know if there is hundreds of hours, a beautiful subject, and he touches nearly every subject that I thought, wow, this is a difficult one. What about the siblings? You understand? What about so you have a child over the derech, he can smoke on Shabbos, and he eats McDonald's burgers in the dining room. And what about the other children? What do you do? I mean, so some Rabbonim said, no, you cannot let him, because he's going to, as they say, he's going to ruin, he's going to make sour the other children as well. And so he has also very radical opinions about that. He says, we don't care, then send them away. Your focus now is on this child. You understand? He has this very radical, it's a very interesting, you have to look at this video. What I'm saying is now maybe very unfair towards him, but or you'll explain, or you, yeah.
It's better than he's a sick child, he needs special
Yeah, yeah,
care,
yeah.
and you are healthy,
You don't need that, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But every child is their own.
Yeah.
You're not on its own.
Yeah.
I think they globally, everybody is weird when I think that's what's missing a lot in like this is where couple is the God.
Yeah.
Not wearing couple.
Yeah, very nice. This is, I don't know, I once spoke. No, this is basic. This was the critique. This was the critique. Sorry, I wasn't critique enough. Yeah. One more. Yeah, I want to just to this individuality is something which is I work a lot on Barna because Rav Kook is also extremely upset on the system. Ish echot belev echot is something that is used a lot in the Haredi Olam. You see the yeshivas, you see the chassidim, you see them all exactly the same. All the children, they look the same. They have to speak the same. They have to learn the same. They strip them off of all the individuality, and it must be, I don't know, but it must be for some boys and some girls. It must be extremely hard because some children have an individuality which is very strong. They have a spark of them of a neshama which wants to give their light and wants to give this, and they cannot. They are being squashed into a system. And what you're saying is exactly that. Also, as a parent, he believes, and I follow him. But it's a long sheer on itself. You have done a good job as a parent if your child is a healthy, good man, a mensch. The fact that he wears this type of couple, or he doesn't wear a couple, or maybe, but he's an honest person and he's contributing and he's part of the community, whatever it is much more important than from what siddur he davens and whatever it is. You understand what I'm saying? That's a very important chidush, which I follow, and it's a tremendous chidush, because I myself would never have said it 10 years ago. But when you start learning the other Sforim, you start to realize that there is the foundation is to be good mention. And then there is the Torah, which gives you the Kedusha. But you can uncheck, the Torah says, I always say that uncheck Kodesh only. First be an Enosh, an Anshe, a mensch. And then the Kedusha comes on top of that. But if you're not a mensch, and you have your big Talmid Chochem, but you're not a mensch, then it's nothing. You understand what I'm saying? So the idea here is of creating a good, healthy people. That's basically what he wants to say. And there is one video where him and his wife, and you can see that this is basically what they're trying to give over to somebody. As a good parent, you've done a good job if your child is healthy and is happy, feels love with himself. Independently, whatever he does, whether he follows the Perag Mitzvahs or not, that's not you for you. The problem today is that we have found ways that, if your children are doing Averos, then after 120, you will suffer up there. When they make mitzvahs, you will, you understand? We have created such a system, a whole system, and it creates a problem because suddenly parents are afraid if the child will be Chal Shabbos, then I will go to Gehenna even after I already passed to Gehenna. And
because he's doing mitzvahs for you.
Yeah.
Egoistic.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's another way of motivating parents to push for the child to go to. Sorry?
It was indeed something very worrying. But like the show for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed, the people go there that they consider. Let's say he said people were never religious. They consider like babies or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the contrary of people who are religious, he really explained who religious, they are really getting,
they considered very like, and they get sanctioned. We have came from Galera.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah. Again, the Torah. Yeah, the Torah tells us if you keep the Torah, and Hashem wants us to keep the Torah. I'm not saying here, but I'm saying is that as a parent, the responsibility of a parent to a child, because a child there's another problem. Sometimes parents are living their lives through their children. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know how to explain it, but
under pressure from their growth and from
whatever, yeah. But the role of a parent as a chinuch, he says, is more important is to create a healthy children. If you've done that, then you've done as a parent. And then if the child is religious or not religious, that's according to, it seems, I don't know, it's a bit, again, it's radical, but I understand where it comes from. And I am quite supportive of this. But the idea is that you have to make sure that the child is healthy. And eventually it will follow you. Like I said, a lot of us here, I don't know all, but a lot of us are religious because our parents are religious, and our children are religious because we are religious. It comes over, it comes naturally. And as long as the foundations are healthy, and that's the main message, and that we create an environment at home where we believe that the child, if he goes through a difficult time or something happens, that he can come to the parents and talk about it. And that's where, I mean, to be honest, I can't remember. I don't think that I could. I mean, I'm not going to speak now, but we all know that. I don't know if you guys could speak to your parents about certain subjects. There were taboos, and that's a problem. That's a problem. Taboos have to be eliminated if we want good children, because they do not receive today in school the right education when it comes to outside of those two bubbles. When it comes to issues, spiritual issues, they can't ask questions about spirituality. The Rebbe has no idea. They can't, whenever there is certain things, they don't have a system. And so therefore, if they cannot come to their parents, then they are lost, and it builds up in their inside, and they suffer, and it can build to a traumatic event. Yes.
Humanity have in places where these techniques are within the system completely applied. Is there pilot cases?
Yeah. There is an organization. Yeah, there is an organization called Kasher Nafshi. That was the organization that he comes to. It's not his organization, I don't think so, but he's one of the main supporters, and they are dealing with that. And they have systems, and they have special. I received by chance today an SMS, confidential. I don't know, you all received, or maybe I received. I don't know. Confidential, that there is somebody from Kasher Nafshi. If you want to, you saw it also. I think it went to everybody. I hope. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, probably means that if you want to participate, it's going to remain confidential, I guess. So there are organizations and there are systems. Yeah, he has written a book. But the book, I guess, is more about normal, what we discussed today, more normal cases, attachment and avoiding the situation to happen. But he has a system that works. He believes that it works, and he proved and nobody could say that it doesn't work. Yeah. Opposite. Yeah.
And to have this change, you need.
Yeah. I have this morning. I'm learning every morning in Satmar, and there was here a paper. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. But in any case, here they are writing. It was on the table where I was learning, and that we should not then change anything, and we should be very strong and know every child the same, and not to bend. And it's exactly that. It's the opposite of what we just discussed today. Yeah. He has a very nice posuk, Binu Shnois Dor V'Dor, which is in Hazinu. Binu Shnois Dor V'Dor. Understand the years of every generation. understand, bino means make a bain, lebain. Bino comes from distinguish. Distinguish each generation, because each generation has a different need, and you need to understand that. You cannot use the old system to the current generation. Yeah, no, not in this context. Yeah, I will pick it up.
Ladies.
Maybe we to the Gula Shleima.
Cookies and